California is so bad for property owners that it's become a squatter's paradise, where a squatter could literally illegally move into your property, claim residency after just 30 days and not pay you a single dime, and eventually take ownership of your property. Coming up, we'll tell you about the scam and how we're trying to fight to prevent it. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California. And yes, California does not care about the rights of property owners. It shows that in every single way, every single law, every single court decision. It's only getting worse. And that makes California a toxic environment for housing investment. That's why we have the highest housing costs in the country. What we are seeing happen in California is the worst of the worst. And that's why I call California a squatter's paradise, because no state in the nation bends over backwards to protect criminals more than California. Squatters who illegally move into someone else's property, and then the owner of the property is the one that's at risk of losing their own ownership and is forced to have months and months and months of legal costs trying to evict someone. And in this election in November 2024, you have an opportunity to send a message that we are sick and tired of liberal politicians trampling on property rights, that we will actually want to stand up for the right of property owners, because that is the only way that we're going to get out of this massive sky-high affordability crisis when it comes to our housing. Let me give you some of the news story here. Fox 11 in LA. Squatter laws in California allow potential tenancy rights after 30 days in a property. This is all about Fox 11's follow-up and Fox News National's follow-up to a story of a bunch of squatters who have been repeatedly breaking into a mansion in Hollywood Hills. Two mansions, actually, that have been completely overtaken by these squatters. The mansions are owned by a film producer and the son of the Philadelphia Phillies owner, John Middleton. His name is John Powers Middleton, so it's John Jr. And he didn't know that people were taking over his property, and he's apologizing to his neighbors for what's happened. Clearly, he hasn't been to the property in a while. Quote, "What's happened to my property is criminal, and I hope everyone caught will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." You know what state you're talking about, Mr. Middleton, right? You're talking about California and Los Angeles County, where George Gascon doesn't prosecute anyone except for his political opponents. Anyways, so you've got this property owner and this $1 million mansion, $5 million mansion that was completely invaded by squatters. And it's only getting worse. I'm going to share with you a little bit of that video, because it's just, it is illustrative of the problem that we're facing here when a mansion is turned into basically a dump, a ghetto.
Once gorgeous mansion in the Hollywood Hills. Look at it now. Gets a 1-2 punch from outsiders. First squatters moved into the abandoned building.
Look at that.
A couple of weeks ago, taggers cover the white walls with graffiti. Oof. Fox 11 Susan Hirasuna joining us live now.
Look at that. This is why you don't have housing investment.
Well, Christina, it's not like the city didn't know about this abandoned property. You see here that Building and Safety put up a chain link fence and it's covered in wood. There's lots of signs that say do not enter. But a tagger came back to the scene of the crime today and told me that word about this property went out last night, and by night's end, barely a space was left open of this abandoned mansion, all covered in graffiti. Once a 9,700 square foot celebrity estate, today a graffiti covered wreck.
Could you imagine living next door to that?
And if beauty is in the eye of the beholder, nearby residents are not fans.
I love graffiti. I love art. I just don't love it on the house.
The property has apparently been a problem for a couple of years. Once renters like Mary J. Blige moved out, the house was pretty much abandoned.
For at least 2-3 years that we know it's been empty. They tried to find the owner. I said they couldn't. And then they finally did, and he doesn't want to have anything to do with it.
The owner is John P. Middleton, the son of John Middleton, owner of the Phillies baseball team. And the property is already well known to the city of Los Angeles and Councilwoman Nithya Raman. She sent Fox 11 News a statement that reads in part, "This owner is in egregious violation of the law, and we are elevating the issue with the Abandoned Buildings Unit at the Department of Building and Safety to ensure that the fullest extent of enforcement is being implemented urgently and swiftly." Despite some initial efforts to secure the property, people were inside Thursday night.
Okay, so blame the owner, right? No, let me be clear. I think that this owner is negligent, abandoned the property, hasn't been properly managing it, maintaining it. But that being said, what does the politician do? They blame only the owner, not the scofflaws, the criminals that are out there doing this. Of course, liberal politician. It can't be the criminal's fault. It must be the landowner's fault. Well, guess what? It's both of their faults. But I think you should start out with the fact that criminals have run amok in Los Angeles and all throughout the state of California. Let's not forget that. But it's part of a culture that these politicians have, that somehow property owners are evil, that they're bad. Everyone should aspire to want to own property. It's a great way to build your wealth. Instead of paying someone else's mortgage, you get to pay down your own mortgage, and at the end of the process, own the property. It's a great way to build wealth. We should be encouraging people. The only way to encourage people to want to buy property is to protect people's property's rights. Otherwise, the property isn't worth anything. And in California, for landlords with rent control and eviction moratoriums and also squatter rights, which we'll talk about in a moment, we have literally choked any investment from coming into our state. And so therefore, without investment, you don't have more apartments built. Without more apartments built, you don't have more supply. Without more supply, you're never going to catch up to demand. And that's the price spike that we're experiencing. Plus, remember that rents go up when landlords have losses from bad tenants. So the only people who benefit from rent control and squatters' rights, eviction moratoriums, are good tenants, because the landlord then has to raise the rents on others so that they can pay their legal bills and, put aside money for the potential loss of revenue, loss of property entirely. Again, this doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, but most people aren't being told that this is what's going on. And so part of what this Fox 11 story highlights is the fact that someone who's a squatter can have possession rights of a home after just 30 days. It says here, several California-based law firms note on their websites that after 30 days, ownership cannot be granted to a squatter, but tenancy rights can. And that someone who pays for the property tax on property that's not theirs after 5 years can actually gain ownership of that property through something called adverse possession in the state of California. And it's basically squatters' rights. It's not unique to California, but it's certainly the worst in California in terms of bending over backwards to give these criminals, let's call them what they are. They are thieves. They are thieving the property of other people. And that's why I think what we need to do is enact a law like Florida. Florida should, or Florida and Georgia recently did squatter reforms, where they basically said, if the person is squatting, the property owner can evict them if they can just simply say, this person's not paying rent, they don't have a contract with me. They don't have to go to court and do an eviction process. That it should be seen as illegal trespassing, and that the law enforcement agents should be able to remove the person without going through a lengthy eviction process. Eviction should only be for someone who has a contract, who lawfully has a contract, and there may be some dispute, and the court needs to adjudicate who's right, who's wrong under the contract. And then, and only then, should there be a process with a timeline. We should have an actual set timeline that limits the amount of time a landowner has to go through for eviction. I mean, we need to get these things done. If that means that you prioritize some of these cases in court, so be it. But this is a major problem for housing affordability in our state, the way that landlords have been literally stripped of their rights, and therefore they are fleeing the state. Investment is flowing out of the state. At Reform California, we believe one way to send the message that we're sick and tired of the constant assault on property rights is for voters to reject Prop 33 in the upcoming November 2024 election. Prop 33 is rent control. It also contains other provisions that undermine private property rights, make it harder for landlords to actually survive in California, making California less attractive for housing investment. And so we urge a no vote on Prop 33. Rent control is not a free lunch. Rent control actually costs renters. If you want to see rent control and how it's working, look at LA, look at San Francisco, the most stringent rent control laws of the country. And yet they've got the worst housing prices in the country as well. It doesn't work. It actually is counter-effective. It actually makes the problem worse. So we're hoping for a massive rejection of Prop 33. Continue to send the message to these liberal politicians in California. No, stop attacking people with private property rights. Defend private property rights, and you will actually have a more robust, more affordable housing market. And it's better for prosperity for all when we say to people, if you work hard, play by the rules, and buy a piece of property, that your government will protect your rights and protect your investment. That's not happening in California, and therefore it's a high-risk environment, and therefore the prices are going to be higher as well. Get our voter guide online at reformcalifornia.org. That's reformcalifornia.org. Click under voter guides. The plain English voter guide gives you a plain English description of every initiative on the ballot, all 10 state propositions. Plus, we found 470 local tax hikes hidden on ballots throughout the state of California. We also make recommendations in all of the candidate races for the top of the ticket all the way down to school board and judge. So check out that voter guide at reformcalifornia.org. Chip in a contribution. Help us restore sanity in this state. Until next time, Carl DeMaio, Chairman of Reform California. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. But before you click away, please subscribe to this channel and click that notification button so you get updated when we post new episodes. Plus, like this video and share it with your friends so that we can help spread our message across the state. Reform California with Carl DeMaio is paid for by Carl DeMaio for State Assembly.